Welcome to the Forex Pro Charts weekly analysis for the week of April the 24th, 2011. This week we're going to look at the Euro GBP pair. Looking at the monthly chart for the Euro GBP, we see we have a little bit of an unusual chart pattern on this pair. We have the lower edge of our trading field, the weekly armpit and the monthly armpit, and this is fairly normal looking. But then when you come up here, you reach the monthly resistance armpit. It is very far down in the chart and quite a long ways to the weekly and then again to the upper edge of our trading field. This is quite a long distance, being almost halfway through the chart. So given that the area where we'd expect to see price turn long term is between the monthly armpit and the upper edge of the trading field, that's quite a long ways that we'll be having some uncertainty about whether or not price is going to turn. Whereas down here, there's a much smaller area to play with. So right now, price is basically almost looks like it's ranging in between these monthly armpits. Not quite, but moved up to this monthly armpit, came back down, moved down to this trend wall, and then back up. And so currently, price is just under this monthly armpit. Overall, price is in an overall uptrend, so buys would be our preferred trade. So that's the monthly. Let's go ahead and look at the weekly. Okay, so looking at the weekly chart, we're looking a little bit more closely. We see that from this fairly new support zone, price moved up very strongly. And we had just a series of green candles on the weekly chart until we hit the monthly armpit, when price immediately bounced down to this level. And you can see that this past week now we have formed a new support zone. But there's a couple things I want to show you about this support zone. First of all, we have not reached the 3-to-1 ratio. So and we'll look at you'll see why we're talking about this when we get to the daily chart. When we reach here, we will, when price returns to this zone, we will not want to trade it because we will not have achieved the 3-to-1 price ratio. And if you followed us for very long, you know that that's absolutely the most important odds enhancers. You have to have that 3-to-1 ratio to have a high probability for success in the zone trade. So this zone does not have a pattern on the weekly chart. It looks like it's going to be part of an overall downtrend, possibly not, but does not have the pattern now, does not have the 3-to-1 ratio, and so this zone is not ready to trade at this point. This zone is a nice strong zone, and we did see a successful trade on this last week. So we saw price move down well. When it came back up, it hit pretty much right at the 60-minute armpit and then turned around and bounced quite nicely down. So we're waiting to see what direction price will take. Price bounced down and then retraced somewhat last week. Let's take a little bit closer look at this on the daily chart. Okay, so here we're looking at the daily chart, and we see where price, where we had the trade when price first revisited the zone here, and price moved nicely back down, formed this support zone, moved all the way back up into the resistance zone, and then moved back down, right back down into the new support zone before retracing up in this final day, just forming this this reversal signal candle here. So really, when you're looking at this, this was the first revisit to the zone. Now we've had the second revisit to the zone, and price did not go very far into the zone. But because it moved up here and then back down, now price has revisited this zone before ever clearing the zone and before achieving the 3-to-1 ratio. So price moved up, immediately back down. We could well see price move back up again, or we could see price continue down and go through this zone. But this zone does not look like it's going to be a very strong zone. It looks like it's going to be dispensed with pretty rapidly. And that's one reason why I marked it. If you're marking it yourself, if you're marking the charts yourselves, you would have seen, because of this fractal here, that this was a daily zone, and you marked the zone. But you have to be careful when you do that. We like to mark the zones right away because it makes it easier to find our armpits when we do that. But you do have to be careful that you remember and realize that this zone is not ready to trade, so that if you're looking for some reason at a smaller version of your chart, or you're in a hurry and you're trading one day and you sit down and you see all of a sudden that price has reached the armpit, and it's right there. Sometimes traders that are not as disciplined, or newer traders, tend to jump into the trade just seeing the way they have their charts formatted. They may just see that price has reached an armpit and not be looking at the overall broader picture. So you really need to be careful every week about evaluating which zones are ready to trade and which zones are not, which zones you will be trading and which zones you won't. There's different ways to handle this. You can mark your zones a different color. For example, you might mark them gray, and then mark the ones that you are wanting to trade this week in a neon orange or something like that. Just whatever works for you. Maybe a different crosshatch pattern, whatever works for you. But some way, you need to have some way, whether it's by marking the zone differently or just by having your trades picked out in advance and keeping a little list posted at your computer. You need to have some way of noting the zones that you're going to trade and the zones that you're going to ignore, so that you don't rush into a trade for example, next week, if price moves down, and you're just looking on your 60-minute chart at that area of the chart, it could be very, very easy to forget that we are not trading this zone and to enter a trade that is going to lose you money. So that is something you really always want to be cognizant of. Also then, looking at this zone, what's happened now, this was a very strong zone, but then price moved out, but it did not move down, and then it moved down somewhat. We had a nice trade on it, but it did not move ultimately as far down as we maybe would have expected before retracing back up into the zone. Now it still could move back down and eventually reach, so that traders who have the last portion of their trade open and break even right here may still see some additional movement on this particular pair. But because price has now come back up into this zone and then down, when price returns again, it will be the first revisit, second revisit, third revisit, and that's going to make this zone weaker, even though it does have this monthly armpit running through it. As we've said, we kind of expect the price will move up through this and has quite a long ways to move, so we could see some strong price movement through this zone when price eventually does breach this zone, and we're getting into that risky number of revisits that we may want to be very cautious about retrading this zone. For example, if it comes back up now without going down any further, will not have moved very far out. It will want to think twice about trading this armpit again if price continues up in the next week or so without moving further down. And then you need to also keep in mind on the EG that you have that higher pip value, which would make your risk more expensive. So this is just kind of a zone pattern that we need to be cognizant of. This looks like a strong zone. The patterns look clear, but price did come back up into it, and we're starting to see this zone deteriorate. Okay, and then looking at the hourly chart, we just can see the detail of the formation of this zone, what price did. You see it actually went up, out, up, and then down. So you can see the detail of the price movement, and as I said, if price should move back up into this zone, just continuing up here, we are getting into the area where this zone is starting to deteriorate, and so we're likely to not recommend a trade on this zone if that happens. So again, pay attention to your zones. Look at them at the beginning of the week. Make sure you know which zones you want to trade and which zones you want to stay away from. I keep a little list by my computer and find that when I don't do that list, I I really have to be careful about getting into trades in zones that really are not the best zones to trade. So that's it for the Euro GBP this week. For more information or to subscribe to our full analysis and charting services, you can go to www.forexprocharts.com. You can do a free week-long demo, and we look forward to seeing you back again next week. Have a good week.